Hello to everyone who has joined us. We're going to get started in just like a minute or two. We want to give everyone time to join the webinar here. To everyone who's just joining us now, thank you for joining. We're just going to give it probably another minute or so to allow the rest of our participants to get in here. All right, let's see, just one more minute. So I appreciate all of your patience while waiting here. We will get started on our excited journey in just a second. Alrighty, so it's 3 after, so I'll go ahead and get started. So hi, officially. Thank you for joining us at our end of year reporting here. Today's webinar, we're gonna go over Comeet Insights and recommended reports that we really think are gonna be strong and helpful for you to find all of the great data from this past year to compile and share with obviously yourself and your team. So for those of you who I don't know, though I do see familiar faces here, my name is Beth. I am with my esteemed colleague, Orly, today. We will be taking you through this reporting journey today. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We expect this to last about 40 minutes or so. We will leave time at the end for questions. We definitely implore you to use the chat box or the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom to add questions as we go through the presentation today, and that way we can get to them at the end, but obviously you're welcome to wait until the end to add your great questions as well. We are also recording this webinar, so we will send it out once we have it all compiled and ready to go. So if you can't stay to the end, don't worry, we will send the recording out for you. We've also had a kind of a webinar series that we did throughout 2020. So we will be sending out that series to you all as well. So you'll receive this recording, and then you'll also receive our webinar series recording. Oops. Alrighty. So 2020, a lot has happened in 2020. We don't need to get into all of the details since we have all lived it and are currently still living in this year, but we are coming to the end. At Comeet, we saw a lot of recruiting highs, a lot of recruiting lows throughout the year, but steadily over the last few months, we've really seen an increase in recruiting for our clients and even for us. So for Comeet personally, we have over 500 clients now across the world. And we have 3 offices, one in the US, which is where I sit. And then we have an office in Israel, which is where Orly sits. And then we also have an office in the Ukraine. So you guys have probably seen that we've rolled out a few new features over the last couple of months. We really wanted to hone in on perfecting reporting and data this year. Step templates was one of those features that we rolled out to help really clear up the data that you're seeing in your reports. So what Step Templates does for you, if you're not already utilizing it, it creates a closed list of step names for you. So when you are creating workflows or your colleagues are creating workflows, you're all going to use the same text or the same verbiage. So ultimately, when you look at reports, everything is going to be the same and your data won't be skewed. So we found that that's been really helpful when it comes to reporting. So if you haven't already started to use step templates consistently, we definitely recommend doing so. And of course, at any point, if you have questions when setting this up, you can let us know. Another feature that we have rolled out is our candidates in multiple processes. So you can have one candidate in multiple positions. This gives you the ability to report on those specific positions, that specific data per candidate card. So you can have, for example, what we're looking at here, Woody Stevens in a QA engineer position. So you can report specific data for that position. Then you can also have Woody in the product manager position and report data specifically for that role as well. Alrighty, so we're also going to be covering reports, as I said before. We will be sending over that webinar series that we've already done for you. Orly is going to talk a little bit more about our agenda and what's new within Comeet. However, we will dive into the insights in just a few minutes here.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we'll be discussing the core reports in Insights, which is Comeet's advanced BI tool, and how you can use them to track the main KPIs we look at, which is applied to hire and time to hire. Additionally, we'll discuss how you can glean information about where you stand in terms of your hiring goals for the year. We'll discuss the hires report, our quarterly management reports, and sources quality and rejected and withdrawn candidate reports. Lastly, we'll talk about how you can reach out to our support for additional assistance as we near the end of the year and in general. And at the end, we'll leave some time for Q&A. So like Beth said, definitely feel free to start sending out questions in the Q&A section here throughout the webinar, and we're happy to answer them. As you probably know, Comeet is constantly releasing new features and improvements to make your recruiting better and more efficient. We always update you about these changes via email and through our chats. And additionally, you'll always be able to see them in our What's New page, which you can access from inside of the app. We definitely recommend checking it out periodically. Make sure there isn't anything that you've missed and that you're up to date with everything we have to offer. Now, with that said, I'll pass you back over to Beth to talk about Comeet Insights.
Great. Thank you, Orly. I appreciate it. So I'm going to take us actually into an actual Comeet account here. And so we can talk about how to access your Insights reporting. Now, I'm assuming most of the people on this call are data nerds like we are here at Comeet. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be joining a reporting call. So I am very excited to talk to you a little bit about Insights. If you've never seen it before, it's an incredible tool that we use to obviously bring you the best data that we can. So we actually just opened up Insights for all of our customers about a month ago. So to access Insights, what you would do is go to the upper right-hand corner of your platform in what we call the Command Center. Probably a few of you have heard me say that in the past. When you click on your company name here, in your dropdown, you would go to Comeet Insights. Now, if this is the first time you are activating Insights or accessing Insights, it will take up to 24 hours for this report to populate for you. Once it's ready for you, or if you've already accessed Comeet Insights, you click here, and it'll take you to the actual reports here. Now, we are just going to cover a few of the reports, and there's a few things I do want to point out for you while looking at this kind of dashboard here. So on the left-hand side, we have all of our dashboards listed, and you can go through and take a look at the different reports that are already set up for you. On the right-hand side, we have your filters set up. So you can filter by time period, lead recruiter, location, department, etc. When you do make those changes to the filters, they will stick. So just keep that in mind. We'll take a deeper dive into the report in just a second. There's a few other things I want to point out for you here. You have the option to download these reports, and you can do so by clicking on PDF over here where my mouse is circling. If I click on PDF, it's going to take me to this screen where I can set up the actual settings for the download. So we do recommend keeping the download at landscape here. You'll also see at the top, it says paper size A3. So that's typically going to be the best way to have full visibility of these reports. So if I just scroll here, you'll be able to see all of these great widgets. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the rest of the reporting here. Then you can just save it or download it here. Now, something else that is really cool, in my opinion, is your ability to set up what we call a subscription to have these different reports emailed to you. So if I click on this email icon here, it's going to say subscription off. If you want to turn it on, you would just change it to on. And then you can decide how you want these reports emailed to you. So do you want this report emailed to you as embedded in the email, or do you want it as an attachment? You can also schedule how often and when you want these reports sent to you. Daily, monthly, you can choose the actual times they'll be sent to you. And you can choose send me a report now, which is going to be at the bottom. And then once you save your subscription here, it's kind of a set it and forget it. You're going to receive those updates based on your settings. I'm going to turn the subscription off so I don't get random emails of data where I will be confused and not know why I'm getting them. Keep in mind with Insights reports here that they are updated every 24 hours. They're updated on a daily basis. It's a little different from our in-app reports, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, in which they're automatically updated. These will update on a daily basis. Now, on the left-hand side here at the bottom, we have our reports overview. That's what I was looking at when we first came to this page. So this is going to show you all of the reports that are available via Comeet. It'll also give you the explanation of what it is that will be included in these reports. Now, you'll have access to a lot of these reports, but depending on our partnership, you might not have access to all. And you will see what might be an add-on and what will be included in the partnership over on the right-hand side. So if at any point you're taking a look at this and you have a question, do you have this? Should you add it on? Anything along those lines, like Orly said, definitely reach out and let us know. We will help you with that process. Now we are going to take a look at the hires report here together today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on hires report over on the left under activity. And just so you know, these do act as folders. So if I click on activity demo 1, it'll close the folder. And when I click on it again, it'll open that folder. Now, for this report to be very powerful and as strong as you want it to be, you want to make sure that you're setting up your openings accurately and you're applying your hire information accurately. So prior to taking a deep dive into this report, I'm actually going to take us back to our Comeet account here to show you what I'm referring to. Now, looking at Customer Success Manager, we have a candidate here, David Rose. David Rose is currently in the awaiting decision step. That means you made an offer and now you're deciding, or now David's deciding, do I want to accept? So in today's example, we're just going to say David is very excited to join the Coolco company. So I'm going to change their status to hired. When I change that status, we're going to get this field. You've probably noticed it over the past 6 months or so. It's kind of a newer feature. And what this is going to do is prompt you to fill out this opening information here. Now, all of your KPIs, such as apply to hire and time to hire, are going to live within this opening. So you want to make sure, so your reporting and your data is accurate, that this is all accurate. So just going through here, I'm going to fill out a few of these fields. So I'm going to choose the opening in which I'm hiring David for. I'm going to take a look at the opening date to make sure that it's accurate. So this is May 27th, 2020, which means the time to hire would be 197 days. Now that seems a little bit crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and actually change this. So in this demo world, my manager doesn't want to kill me. All right, November 2nd sounds a little bit better. We can also change their application date. We can do when you actually added them or choose another time here. Their source, and then their hire date, we'll keep that at December 10th. and then also their start date you'll want to fill out. And then you can just go ahead and make your hire here for that candidate. All of that data should be accurate once you fill that out, but let's say you're taking a look at that hires report and something seems off. Maybe the apply to hire is way out of whack, super long like we just looked at, it's like over 100 days, and you're wondering what the heck is going on. You do have the option to change or edit opening hiring information within the actual position openings. So I'm gonna go over to our position and our openings here. If I click on openings, I will see that I just made this hire. It says one hired, it's David Rose. And then I can easily edit this data directly through this opening. So applied, I can choose another date. Hired, I can edit and choose another date. And I can change their start date here as well. So it's very easy to edit that information if you do notice a discrepancy in your reports. Alrighty, navigating away from that, let's take a look at our hires overview. So I'm just gonna do a high level kind of overview here so you know what is going to be included in this report, but I would definitely recommend taking a deep dive yourself within your own data. And again, if you have any questions, let us know. So like I said earlier, you do have the ability to filter via these fields on the right-hand side here. If we keep everything the same as we have right now, we can take a look at what we have going on here. So we can see within the time period of 2020, we hired 107 candidates. The average time to hire was 68 days. The average apply to hire was 50 days. Scrolling down here, we can see our hires over time per location. We can see hires by location. If at any point you want to filter directly through this Insights reports, I personally think this is very cool. You can do so by just clicking on one of these pieces of the chart. So if I click on Barcelona here, you'll see that all of the other data is going to repopulate. And now we're only going to be seeing information specifically to Barcelona. Now for today, we might want to see all of our data. So I'm just going to go ahead and click clear selection, and all of the data will repopulate for all locations. Scrolling down here, we can see our hires over time per department. So if that is something that your team wants to see a breakdown of, this is going to be great. It'll also be great for those hiring managers for those departments, so you can see, how they're doing and how their positions are being filled. We have our hires over time per source type. So agencies, job boards, social networks, your careers website, referrers, so on and so forth. And you can see hires per source type or hires by source type. We have our hires report here. So it's going to break down the hires that you've made by location, position, candidate. What's great here is you can click directly into any of these candidate cards if you would like to receive additional information. You can see their source type, their source name, again, their candidate URL, their hire date, start date, time to hire, time to onboard, apply to hire. This is going to give you really great information. If at any point you see a certain widget like the one we're looking at now and you're like, this is gold and I need to share it with my team, you do have the option to download specific widgets, and you can do so by clicking on these three little dots over and to the right. Click download. And then you can decide if you want to download it via image, CSV, PDF, Excel. So you can download the full report. You can also download individual widgets. Oops, sorry about that. I scrolled a little bit too hard and took us back to the last page there. All righty. All right. So that is actually everything I wanted to show you with hire reports. So I'm going to go ahead and send this back over to Orly, and she'll take you through the rest of Insights here.
Thank you, Beth. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to take a look at a report called Quarterly Overview. This is one of 3 reports, 2 of which are available to all customers, 1 only for Ultimate customers, that we've built for upper management. And while the hires report that Beth just showed you was really more meant for recruiters and did more of a deep dive into some of the data, had the table at the bottom, this report is really meant more for management, and it kind of gives you a bird's eye view of everything that's been going on with your recruiting in the past year and your hires in the past year. So here at the top, it's the same information that we saw before in the other hires report, how many hires we had, the hires over time that we had. We also already saw the hires by department and hires by location. But this is a great widget. We'll talk about the information it contains soon in terms of how it's set up. But what I can see here is actually what percentage of my hires were because of my company grew, which are the new ones here. And 1% was because people either left the organization altogether or they temporarily left, like maternity leave, and I had to replace them for that time, which is a temporary replacement. Now, I want to actually show you inside of Comeet how this is set up in our openings, because it is something that we've added in the past year. I'm going to click here to add an opening and show you the fields that are relevant to this report here. So when I open an opening, first of all, I can set up the opening date. One of the changes that we made is we now enable a future opening date. So if you want to plan ahead, you know that you have an opening that's going to, that you're going to start working on in 2 months, you can go ahead and open it now and then have kind of a hiring plan set up inside of your Comeet. Additionally, there's the expected hire. Our default value for the expected hire is 60 days. There might be some positions that are easier to hire where you want to set up a shorter expected hire, or maybe some R&D positions that are really hard to fill and maybe you want to make it longer. If you don't touch it at all, we do provide a default value that is 60 days. Additionally, this field is one that we actually recently made a required field because it contains such important information. And we call this the opening reason. So that's what we saw before in the pie chart: new, replacement, or temporary replacement. So make sure you're taking care with filling in these values in your opening so you can also get value out of the reports. That said, we're going to go back to our quarterly report. Now, this next graph is really great. It's called the hiring plan status. And it really is a great way to see where you were in terms of your goals in this past year. Now, while this is called a quarterly report, you can do what I did here and actually take a look at the entire year if you'd like to, or like any of the other reports with a time filter, you can kind of customize that and decide what time period you want to look at. But I'm looking back at 2020, and I can see that in this time, almost 68% of my hires were on time. What this means, we talked about how if you don't change the value there, the expected hire is 60 days, which is what I've done here. So 68% of my hires took 60 days or less. I can see over time as well where I was in terms of my goals. The dark green here are hires that were on time, meaning that they took me less than 60 days. The light green are hires without a target date. This isn't something that should happen anymore. It will only be in your older data because, like we said, now this is a default field. We have hire delayed, meaning that I made the hires, but it took me longer than 60 days. And lastly, this pink here are pending hires. That means the openings are still open and I haven't been able to fill them. And it's been more than 60 days. Next here, we have information about our time to hire, which is how long it took from when the opening was open to when we filled it. So my average time to hire over the entire year was 68.4. The industry benchmark is 60, so I'm a little bit above that. Obviously, because of that industry benchmark of 60, we also made 60 our default value in Comeet. Now, ideally, obviously, I don't want to be seeing this going down and not up. But here in my data, I can see that actually in Q4, my average time to hire went up significantly. So this is maybe something I'd want to take a look at when I'm looking deeper into the data. These next bar graphs show me my average time to hire by department. So this blue value represents my average time to hire in days. The gray dots are so I can understand how many hires I had. And the reason for that is I can see that I have this, this column here, it's 153 days, and that's a little bit long, but that's only one hire. So obviously that would be much worse if it was the average of multiple hires and it was this high. We have the same information as well by location. So here as well, I can see the average time to hire for each one of the locations and how many hires I had in each one of those locations. And lastly here, we have information about sources too. This is really meant to be one place where upper management can look and get a full feel of what happened with the hires. So first of all, here at the bottom, we show information about the types of hires that generally cost us money, which are either hires from agencies, hires from referrals, or hires from active search. So here I can see that a lot of my hires are coming from referrals, which is always great, really good quality hires usually. 2.8% came from my active search, meaning my sourcing activities, and 5.6% came from agencies. I can also see a breakdown of the hires by source type and by source type over time, like we saw in the hires report. Now, the next report we're going to look at is one called Sources Quality. It's inside the sourcing folder, inside of Insights. Now, unlike the report we looked at before, where we were looking specifically at hires, here we're looking at the same information about candidates added. So how many candidates did I receive from each one of the source types? First of all, in the entire time period. Here we're looking at 2020, where I could see the job boards are really dominating the candidates I have. And I can see my candidates added by source type over time, which is great because it can let me see, let's say, how reliant I am on agencies over time, or if I'm able to maximize the sources that aren't costing me money, how I'm doing in terms of referrals. I can hover here over, let's say, refer and be able to see specifically that information to make things easier for me. And then here we have tables about source performance. The first table is organized by the type of source. So I can compare, let's say, agencies to each other, or look at all my active search sources and compare them to each other. What I can see here is, first of all, the type of source, the source name, and I can see how many candidates I received from each one of the sources. Of those candidates, how many were screened? This means they passed, that we performed at least one screening, at least a CV screen by the recruiter. How many passed the screening, at what the qualified percentage is. That is, how many of them successfully passed the screening. So this is a really great place to look. Sorry about that. I don't have a mouse. And say I see an agency that's got me 17 candidates. Only one of them passed the screening. It's a really low qualified percentage. So maybe I'll decide that I don't want to keep working with that agency in the future. I definitely recommend taking a look here and understand where you stand with your sources, because you end up investing a lot of your time and effort in screening candidates. So you definitely want to make sure you're investing that time and effort in the right place. Here at the bottom as well, any table that is long and we can't fit it here, you could also click through the numbers or click on the little arrows at the bottom to see more data, by the way. And here in the top right-hand corner, will be easier for you to see it in an Excel form, or you want to do something different with the data. You can also download it as an Excel or as a CSV. So definitely something you might want to take advantage of. And next, we have the source performance information by position, which is a different but also really useful way to see the information. So how well are my sources doing in each one of the specific positions? Let's see. So we'll take a look at this big data group lead position. I can see that I've gotten some candidates from agencies. Their qualified percentage is pretty good. Working with a job board that sent over candidates. Job boards generally have a lower qualified percentage, so this actually isn't a bad number, but it's not really very big numbers as it is. So we'll keep that in mind as well. You can also add a filter on the right side of the screen if you really want to focus in on a specific position and only see that here in these tables. So that's our sources quality report. The next report that we're going to talk about is the rejected candidate report. Like we said, we spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on screening and rejecting candidates. The first thing to know here is that it's really, really important to manage your rejection reasons correctly inside of Comeet so that you can get the maximum value out of this report. So inside of Comeet, anybody who's an owner or admin can manage these reasons in the dispositions reasons section of the system settings. And in the summary we'll be sending out, we'll send out a link to recommended disposition reasons. So if you're missing some reasons, you could definitely add those. Make sure that your reasons are specific enough so that you can get value and understand things about your recruiting processes in this report. I'll tell you now that one of our default reasons doesn't meet minimum qualifications. What I see with a lot of the customers I manage is that they use this for the vast majority of their candidates. And then they try to look at this report and understand what happened, and 90% of the candidates were rejected because they didn't meet the minimum qualifications. It's just a very general reason. So in our recommended reasons, we break this down into several different reasons. I really recommend doing that again, so you can get the most value out of this. So here I can see generally over the past year, why candidates were rejected. Typically that's what we'll see, that most of the candidates will be rejected because the position was closed. Less interesting in terms of the data, it's more interesting to look at the other rejection reasons, because this is an automatic rejection reason. But where this gets really interesting is when you start looking at it on a step level. So what you can do here actually is you can click on one of the steps. And what I've done is actually filtered the entire report, all of this dashboard, by that step. So now I can see why candidates are being rejected in the phone interview. Now, the real value in this report is trying to see where I can actually make some changes in my process so that I don't spend time on phone interviews for candidates and maybe you know, I'm going to end up rejecting anyway. So let's say the candidate has insufficient experience, maybe I'd be able to screen some of those out in the CV screen before I even get into the phone interview, for example. Let's go into one of the more advanced steps. I feel like the more advanced in the process you look, obviously there'll be fewer rejected candidates, but the more you'll be able to understand from these rejection reasons. So here we already have candidates that came in for an in-person interview with the hiring manager. And we can see the 23% of them have an insufficient professional level, 11% don't have enough experience, 17% don't have the right qualifications. So again, these are things that maybe I'd be able to screen out in the future in my phone screen or even in my CV screen. And then my hiring manager won't have to spend time interviewing candidates that don't have the right professional level. Now here, and I'm reminding you that we're still looking at the on-site hiring manager interview. That is the minute that I click on one of these steps here, I've actually filtered the entire report by that step. I can see by department how many candidates I'm rejecting in that step, and where those candidates are coming from. So another thing that's really interesting to do is actually, you can also select a specific rejection reason, select maybe a specific step as well, and understand if maybe there are sources that are sending you candidates that are being rejected at advanced stages in the process because of things like their experience. And that's something you can, if it's an agency, for example, it's something you can discuss with them and maybe improve. We also have rejected candidates by position, which is really a measure of our workload. But once you're taking a look at a step level, you can also see how many candidates are getting to advanced steps and then being rejected. And at the bottom of the screen, we have this table where you can do a deeper dive, click into the candidate URL in Comeet if you want to. So this table as well is being filtered by the filters that we have here on the right-hand side of the screen. And then lastly, the withdrawn candidate report has the same basic layout as the rejected candidate report. It's also really important. You can get a lot of value from this report. So first of all, here too, it's really important to make sure you're managing your disposition reasons correctly and that you have put a lot of thought into the reasons the candidates are withdrawing and that you're taking care to choose the right reason when a candidate withdraws. Now, things that you can learn from this report, maybe agencies are sending you candidates or withdrawing because they're already in advanced stages with other companies, or maybe your job description isn't specific enough, or doesn't represent the position well enough. And then in the phone screen, you're having a lot of candidates withdraw because they're not interested in the position. Or maybe you're getting to the offer stage with candidate and you're investing a lot of time into those processes, and then your salary isn't competitive enough and you have candidates leaving because the salary isn't high enough. So here as well, I can see how many candidates I've had withdrawn and how many withdrawals I have over time. And then these are my general withdrawal reasons for the last year. So I can already see, and it's a little bit of a red flag, that 50% of my candidates are withdrawing because they accepted another job. Now, we're going to take a look at, say, CV Screen Manager. So I have 30 candidates who, before they even have a phone interview, have already contacted us, or maybe an agency has contacted us on their behalf, saying that they've already accepted another job. What this could mean is maybe I'm not getting to candidates fast enough. Or maybe, even worse, agencies are sending me candidates already super advanced in processes in other companies. And so I'm spending my time screening candidates that they've already accepted another position anyway. And at the bottom, soon we'll be able to see it. You can actually see by source as well, who are the sources that are sending us these candidates. Take a look at the phone interview. So here, this is exactly what we discussed. We have 42% of the candidates are dropping out here because they're not interested in the position. Now, on one hand, it's better that they drop out here at the phone interview, not further into the process. But again, this would be a red flag to me that maybe my job description isn't specific enough. And that's why I'm getting these candidates. Or again, if they're coming from agencies, then maybe agencies aren't weeding out candidates well enough on their end. And again, we have our withdrawn candidates by department and by source. We're definitely, if I saw that I have a lot of withdrawals from a specific source, I would raise a red flag and I'd want to look into it. And by position. And lastly, we have this table of candidates on the bottom. So I know there was a lot of information about the reports. Thanks for sticking it out. And I'm going to pass you back over to Beth.
Great. Thanks, Arlie. So that is everything we wanted to cover today for our reporting. Now, I do just want to remind you that there are a few more reports within the Insights that we didn't cover. So again, I would definitely recommend going in there, taking a look at your reports, pulling all that data for your end of year to share with your team, and definitely recommend reaching out to us if you have any questions. If you haven't used our chat before, let me see 1 second if I can pull this up for you really fast. It is typically the best way to get in touch with us. So you can, 1 second. Let me share my screen again. You can reach out to, actually it's not gonna show here. 1 more second, I apologize. I should have had this ready for y'all. I'll show you my real account. So I'm gonna apologize in advance for all of my, my tabs I have open here. All right, so if at any point you do have any questions, maybe something's confusing, you're looking at reports and it just isn't adding up, you can reach us by coming to our Intercom Chat in the bottom right-hand corner of your Comeet. So just click on this little blue button. It'll open up this page. You can send us a message. You'll typically be hearing from me during the US hours, but you'll also have the chance to speak to some of my colleagues across the world as well. We typically respond within 20 minutes, and we can typically resolve all issues via the chat. It's a really easy way for us to communicate and get that taken care of. If we can't, resolve it over chat, we can schedule a Zoom like we're doing now.
I will just add too that we have a huge database of articles as well, and you may very well be able to find the answer you're looking for without even having to wait for someone to answer you on the chat. There's a little search bar as well. So definitely do a search there first, see if you can find the information you need. And then if not, obviously we'll be really happy to help you via chat. Yeah, absolutely. Our team has been working on support videos that are like really short and concise and I think fun and interesting to watch. So just as a reminder, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar as well as a recording of our series of webinars from this year. So you can have all those on hand.
We are going to open it up to y'all for questions. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat on the bottom of your Zoom or in the Q&A that we have there as well. So whatever makes more sense for you, feel free to drop them in there. And we'll just give you a minute to come up with those really great questions.
Meanwhile, I'll start answering the questions we've already received.
Cool.
So one question is, can there be a situation where the apply to hire is higher than the time to hire? It's a really good question. I think for the most part, that's not something you'll see, because generally people will be applying to the opening after you started advertising the position and working on it. There might be some situations where, I don't know, you have a really great candidate and you weren't planning on adding another opening, but you add one just for them, or you started working on one opening and you hired it and opened another one during that time. But for the most part, I think those will be edge cases. And there shouldn't be a lot of situations where applied to hire is higher than the time to hire. It's definitely something that would raise a flag in my reports, and I would take a look at the openings tab to make sure that wasn't a mistake being made there. Another question here is, what is NA in the Insights reports and how can that be fixed? Another really great question. It's something that we see sometimes in the reports. It definitely requires some cleanup. I'm going to share my screen and show you something. So NA generally means that data is missing in your report. So if you see positions with a location that's NA or with a department that's NA, that means that you haven't added a department or location for those positions. The easiest way to fix it is from in here in the My Open Positions or All Open Positions view. Here I have my positions grouped by location. So anything here at the bottom under Other doesn't have a location. And I can also change my grouping. And let's say I'm missing a department, I can group by department. And then here at the bottom where it says Other, I'll be able to find those positions that don't have a department and fix that. Do this with Lead Recruiter as well. Some older positions might be missing a Lead Recruiter. So definitely recommend doing that cleanup. Just keep in mind that, again, it will take up to 24 hours for those changes to be reflected inside of your Insight. It's not instant like our in-app reports. See if we have any additional questions here.
It looks like we have one more here. Can disposition reasons be changed? If so, how can they be changed? So dispositions reasons can be changed. So you would access those disposition reasons in your company settings. So it will be something that will be changed by owners and admins. Let me just show you briefly what that's going to look like and how you can actually do it. 1 second. All right, so you would go to your settings up here in the upper right-hand corner of Comeet. And then on the left-hand side here, you'd go to disposition reasons under data. And then here you can add your additional rejection reasons, your additional withdrawn reasons. As Orly said, for some of these, like doesn't meet minimum qualifications, maybe get a little bit more granular and put some more examples there. So you truly understand what you mean by not meeting minimum qualifications. And then if you haven't already, this is just a side tip. We do recommend making sure that it is required for people to choose a disposition reason when they are rejecting candidates or changing their status to withdrawn. All right, any other questions? Those are good ones so far, keep them coming. All right. So that seems to be it. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. We know it can be tough sometimes watching people talk at you for 40 minutes. So I hope you learned a lot and I hope it kept you entertained. Again, let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help you. We will be sending out the recording of this webinar as well as our past series of webinars. We look forward to working with you. We've been enjoying working with you in the past and we'll look forward to working with you continuing in 2021. So enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your year, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you all soon. Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.